So after saving our scene, now we are going to save this scene as something else. We're going to call it the flipper animation A. Okay, because of course in here we're going to try a different kind of animation, and let's see just what will that be. Okay, and then here's what we're going to do. We are going to select this entire row here and delete those tiles, and then pick these ones here, and then we're going to move them to be at the edge there. Then let's just rotate things a bit. Okay, so what will happen now is the following. Just wait. What we want to happen is that this, remember we are working in reverse. So what we want to happen is that it starts to unfold, and then when it gets to the last one, that's when those on each side are going to deploy. Okay, so again, let's select all the tiles on that side. Let's change the time configuration here to something else, maybe to something like what, let me see. Okay, let's work in minutes and seconds configuration. Let's say we're working until 1 minute 23 seconds, and then rescale the time. Okay, now, so remember we selected these. We're then going to select all the keyframes and then move them forward in time. Okay, and then let's see. So it's starting from here. So when it gets, okay, let's see. Let's first undo the moving of the keys. Edit, select all, pick everything. Let's move the keys a bit forward. Okay, everything, yeah, like that. Now here's what we need to do. Select all these keys that are here, move those, change that time like that, so that of course we can focus on this row here. So what happens is this. Let's see. Okay, let's see. Let's select these ones again. Try and move these keys here for them to the beginning again. And then let's try and play it backwards. So let's see. Move these keys again like that. Yeah, like that. So yeah, let's do that for now. And then let's pick up these ones keys. Now they are the ones to start. Okay, like that. But just wait. So let's see what happens when we play this from the end to the beginning. This is what happens. The cards unfold until they reach the last one. Now the minute the last card has flipped over, the last tile that is has flipped over, that's when of course we need that's when we need of course our animation to spread out like that. So again, play it from the beginning. The animation starts. So you see, the problem is that of course they are starting to animate too early. So try and move them again more forwards. There we go. Now we've got it right. Okay. So here's what happens. When we play it from the beginning to the end, don't worry, we'll reverse the time in After Effects or in another video editing application. So here's what happens. The animation starts, the cards flip, or the tiles flip. This flip. The other ones are starting too early. So the other ones wait until the last one settles. Look at this. Until the last one settles. There we go. That's when of course the other ones unfold. Let's play this back. Not in real time, but ping pong. No, in reverse. Okay. Hit OK. Play back. And then observe what's going to happen now. Observe. Yeah, it's almost there. Yeah, there we go. So this one starts to unfold. Look at this until, of course, the last one, boom. And then, of course, the other ones continue the flow. And they're a bit too late, so let's just change their time a bit there by squashing them closer in time like that. Okay. Okay, play this back. So when you play this in reverse, here's what happens now. So those ones start until, of course, the last one, boom, there we go. And then, of course, the other ones continue the course. Beautiful. Okay. Please, of course, save your scene. Yeah, so when we replay again, this is what we're getting. Now, we can try to be even more clever in the following way. We can then select, let's see, some of these. Let's start from there. Yeah. Select those. Yeah, those 4 tiles. Go to Edit, Clone, and move them like that. And then select them again. Now this time rotate them to 90 degrees, of course, and then position them in such a way that they look as if they're facing forwards like that. Now if we were to play back our animation, don't worry, I will show you how to hide these ones so that they only become visible once these tiles here have opened up completely. So here's what happens at this point. You see that, huh? So they continue the flow of things. Let's create other duplicates. Okay. Now there has to be a slight delay in between them. Again, this is really the part of us just trying to be creative. Okay. So in other words, in the beginning it's like this. You see, it goes a bit slowly than the one next to it. That's the whole point. If we play this back, check what happens. You see, it's going at a rate of its own. That's the whole point. Okay. And then, in fact, we can even go ahead and select these very same ones here. Go to Edit, Clone, and shift them about. And shift them again. And again, of course, remember the secret to offset, to move about the keyframes, you see. Remember, they have to have a life of their own, so that's why I'm moving mine differently. Again, when we play this back, remember we've turned off real time, and then we've turned on reverse option, so that of course we can see for ourselves what's going on. So you see that now, eh? It's going at a rate, of course, of itself, you see. Okay, brilliant, eh? Please go ahead and save. By the way, 3D Max has a nice way of enabling us to preview everything we are doing at a better speed, okay? So, let's do the following. You can see it has to end at frame, let's see, 48. So, double click on the time configuration there, and then we're going to right click and copy the time. Go to Animation, Make Preview. We're going to tell 3D Max to create a preview from the 0 seconds, and then we right click and paste the time there, and then just increase the size of the output there so that it's nice to see, and then hit create. And then you're going to notice now 3D Max begins to create a build-up of everything we've done, okay? We just have to be patient and wait, okay? Yeah, there we go. It's coming now. So this is how 3D Max creates previews that will enable us to see, of course, what we've been working on. And then it's done. Now it's going to open your media player. There we go. So of course now it's going to play this back. But unfortunately this is in forwards time. So we have to use another media player to enable us to play what we have here. And that is Quicktime Player. So please go ahead to apple.com and then /Quicktime so that we can get the Quicktime Player. and then let me show you how to do it. We go to, there's a place where 3D Max has saved our preview. So to find it, we go to Start, Documents, or Start My Documents, or wherever you save your documents. You're going to notice a folder there called 3D Max. So open that. And then there's a folder there called Previews. You see that? There it is. Okay. And then there's a file called Scene. Okay. And then we're going to right click, select Open with QuickTime Player. If you can't see QuickTime, you just choose Default Program, and then find wherever you've installed QuickTime, or you can even click Browse until, of course, you find, let's see, Program Files, QuickTime, and then select the QuickTime Player there. Okay. Anyways, I have my QuickTime there, so I'm just going to right click, Open with QuickTime Player. We are using QuickTime because it has the ability to reverse a playback. There we go. QuickTime is now live. Now we have to go to View, Loop Back and Forth, and then Play. Okay. First, we have to jump. Okay, we can't jump. It has to complete the first forwards playback, and then it's going to, of course, to loop backwards. So this is how the animation looks like. Normal timing. Remember, we're going to reverse everything in After Effects. Okay. Yeah, so this is how things look like when they're folding in forward motion or in forward timing. You see that, huh? So that's what happens at first. And then let me pause until it begins the reverse playback. Yeah, now watch this. There we go. Now 3D Max QuickTime begins the reverse playback. There we go. You see, this is what we are going to see in the end in After Effects. When we reverse the time, you see the tiles unfold, and they unfold, and they unfold. Until, of course, they get there, at which time, of course, the other tiles unfold themselves too. You see now, eh? It's like a chain reaction. Things lead onto the next, and so forth. Okay, so that's why we use QuickTime, because we went to File. We went to View, Loop Back and Forth. Or you can always turn it off if you're satisfied with what you see. Okay. What's even more interesting is that we can still go ahead and tweak things even further. In other words, you can actually take up to those tiles, and yeah, shift them like that. Deselect that one and then shift the next row like that. And then yeah, and they will still flip properly. And this is what I mean. You see? You see that, eh? Beautiful, isn't it? Yeah, you can even delete that one there, you know, just to create an interesting flow of things. Okay, so we are happy with this one. Let's open up our earlier scene called row flipped. Yeah, there we go. Yeah, this one here. We're going to do further work on it, so let's go ahead and save it right away. Let's call it the flipper animation B. Okay. Now, here's what needs to happen to it. We just want rows which are animated. So, select everything, and then we go to Tools, Array, click on Preview, and we just want to move them, let's see, on the X-axis like that. Okay. Okay. Get them a bit closer. Yeah, that will do. And I think 6 rows will do. Just get them closer again. Okay. And then, of course, it's all about offsetting the animations, because right now, of course, they're all doing the same thing. Please save right away. incrementally. That's why there's a plus. When you go to file savers, there's a plus there so that we can save incrementally. As you can see, of course, now it calls it BO1 because, of course, it has still kept our original B, animation B file intact so that we can always go back to it in case we make mistakes. Okay. Yeah. Now, this is a part where, let's see, you can delete that. You know, we're just trying to create something random here. Okay. Yeah. And then let's do the following. We're going to offset the animations. For instance, all these rows here. Change the time configuration to something much higher, something like 1200 frames. Okay. That, of course, we have more room to manipulate. And then, yeah, just offset the animation as you can see me doing. So now when it starts, let's just have perhaps the first row there interacting. And then we are just manually selecting whichever ones we feel like manipulating. I think this row here, yeah, has to be played with. So we select the entire row. And of course, we offset the animation. Offset some more. So when we play this back, let me change my time here to 4. There we go. It's a bit, of course, delayed. Okay. This row too has to be affected. It could even be the first row to be animated. And then, no, it doesn't seem to work. Yeah, instead, let's have it like this. Yeah, you see, at least now there's a bit of randomness going on. Play this back, you see that, huh? Aha. This, at least, is a bit of randomness going on, you see. Much better than having everything moving at once. And what's more is really in the beauty with which, of course, things seem to flow. You see that, huh? So you can always have your camera position right there to capture all the moment. You see that, huh? Yeah. And in that way, when you turn off real time and you enable reverse and you play this back, you see that. That way now you can have, of course, the rows coming on screen to the viewer like that, eh? Great. Okay. Let me just change mine back to real time. Okay. Now, another interesting animation that we can do is putting all these tiles around formation of a letter. So let's save this as animation C. And then we first help ourselves out visually by typing what we need to type. We're going to use the abbreviation of untitled.com, which is HTJ. Yep. Rotate to 90 degrees. And let's just scale it up. Remember, this is just we just use this as a guide, huh? Okay. And now, of course, we begin to use what we need. We start with this one here. Or in fact, let's rotate the text itself to face like this. Okay. Yeah. Now, let's select this row over here. Obviously, that goes to make that part of the letter. Shift and drag to make a copy. Make an instance, that is. Okay. Another one goes there to sit in there. and then we need that parts of it to go there. Okay, and then in the end sorry, let's see, what do we need to do about this one then? No, we can't rotate it like that. So instead, we're going to do something very interesting, and that's the following. We're going to move each one of these into place, one by one, until they fill up the region there. Yeah, just let's make sure, of course, there's roughly enough spacing in between these blocks. Remember, the hierarchy is very important. In other words, it matters a lot as to which block is supposed to come before the other, or else, of course, that will end up breaking the flow of things completely. So, but of course, so far we're doing a very good job. Yeah, that sits in there. This whole block here can be lifted up, so of course it's closer to where we want to place it. There we go. And of course this one takes its place as well. See that? Of course, we confirm this by a quick scrubbing through. If we were to play this back, what happens? Yes. Oh yeah, you see that, huh? You see that, huh? It's at least different. That's the whole point, okay? And then we have to do something also dynamic around the J. And here's what we can do. First, let's move all the blocks except the text itself, of course. And then, yeah, just shift it down a bit. And yeah, let's begin to reposition some of these blocks here. The whole idea is just, of course, trying to get the shape of the letter J. This is 42. Where's 43? There's 43. That's 42. Or rather 44. So it can move there. 43. 42. And of course, that itself comes up there. See that? Of course, from a distance, people can recognize that that definitely is a J. So you see that, huh? But we have to position it at the ending position that we eventually want it to be at. So that's why we scrub to frame 0. Remember, we are still working in reverse animation mode by working backwards, of course. Okay. Again, when we play this back, yeah, can you see what's happening? Okay. Great. Okay. And then we need another row to sit in there. Yeah, and then of course we need something to sit inside the H there. And we can actually, actually let's freeze the text itself. Select the text, right click, object properties, tell it to be frozen, freeze, and check show frozen in gray. Okay, that way of course we don't select it by mistake. And yeah, let's pick up these pieces here. Edit, clone. Okay, and yeah, move them accordingly. Yeah, move them like that. Okay, so that way of course when we animate, that is the kind of thing of course that we end up having. Okay. Great. So if I play this back from here, yeah, let's see, let's turn on the reverse, real-time reverse option. Okay, and then yeah, let's see what cooks then. You can see of course what happens. The tiles keep flipping until of course they give us the letter HTJ. Okay, brilliant. So this is animation that we have, but I can assure you it can get even more interesting. Here's what we can do. We can go ahead and highlight all the cubes on that side. You see that? Excluding anything over there. Okay. So you can see what they are, of course. That way, we are looking for a way to create reverse animations. In other words, you select the moving tool and then we go to edit. So go to tools, mirror. We're going to make instances of them. And then we're going to offset it. You see that? So that it can just occupy the other side like that. Okay. Now, when you play this back, of course, you can see what those objects are, right? Okay. So now, we are going to select those tiles, move them to the side, rotate. As you can see, of course, we have the angled snap toggle option turned on. Now, we are going to rotate these guys here, all the way to 180 degrees. And then move them a bit closer again. Now when you play this back, can you see they now do the opposite actions? They're not doing the opposite actions of what the neighboring ones are doing. You see that? Now of course this one begins to flip like that. You see? Isn't this wonderful? Of course, you see that, huh? So it's like they are crisscrossing each other, and that's really wonderful thing to see. Okay. And then, yeah, okay. And then, of course, we can go again to tools, mirror. Move this one to the side again. Yeah. All right. And again, remember? Yeah, that's what happens there. You see that, eh? Okay. And then we go to tools again, mirror. And yeah, move it to the side. Okay, bring it up. This time I wanted to play around with the letter T. So rotate it, of course, to 90 degrees and position the tiles. Sometimes you might have more tiles than you need, like in our case here. Okay. So that's simple to solve, in that we are simply going to delete that extra one there. Yeah. And even that one there also goes away. And that goes away. Okay. And then we just have to select these ones here along with the first one. Move that down. And then of course now when you play this back, you see that. You can see of course what the tiles are doing beautifully, as if they were crisscrossing each other. Okay. That's wonderful.